Let's get going. So I want to start with mindset blocks. Okay. And so these mindset blocks are pretty much the ones that I see on a day-to-day level when it comes to all the entrepreneurs that I work with. When it comes to particularly marketing and sales, you can find these in other places. But this is why someone's going to, like, one person is able to implement this stuff and the other person isn't. Okay. And so a lot of the time you can have, you've of course experienced this. You can have the strategy, you can have all the different things. But if you do not sort of work on your mindset around marketing and sales, these things are a few of these are going to end up coming up for you. Okay. First is perfectionism. We talked about this the other day. If we need to feel like we need to have the perfect avatar or the perfect positioning, the perfect relevancy, the perfect content, right? The perfect script, we're never going to be able to get there. And so what happens is that slows down our momentum, right? That slows down our momentum. And this perfectionism, a lot of the time, it comes from childhood. It comes from our parents, it comes from school, it comes from us being hard on ourselves. And that has to dissolve if we really want to allow our creation to come out. Because what you realize is that, like, creation in many ways happens as a mistake, right? It doesn't happen when you sit down in front of the computer. No entrepreneur went in front of the computer and had some great idea. It was when they were, out of context, when they were out of that day to day. It was when they weren't trying to have that perfectionism, right? Any great artist, when they're trying to do something perfect, the creativity is just locked. It's when that person is just flowing in their day-to-day life. And so that's why when it comes to content and relevancy and avatar, yes, we want to be able to do it right. But the pursuit of perfection is one that will leave you very unhappy and make it so that it's very difficult to get momentum inside of your business. So then the second one is simplicity versus complexity, right? And so the mind desires, the ego desires complexity. We like complexity. Complexity is novelty. Complexity feels like it's necessary. And so this is what happens when people create all these crazy automations and crazy sales pages and all this type of, they take the pure element of marketing and sales, which is to be able to allow someone to understand that they can be helped, right? And help them. And they take that and they wrap it around all this automation, all this technology stuff, and all these different types of things that don't really get to the actual issue. Not the issue, but the actual opportunity. And so in order to be able to get to simplicity, which is our ideal, we have to let the mind and our ego dissipate in order to be okay with having the marketing and sales be the basics, right? And a lot of the time, we're not going to be able to trust ourselves. A lot of time, we're going to have to kind of go against the grain of what we've seen and comparing to others. I saw a quote earlier, which is the easiest way to have an unfulfilling life is to compare yourself to others. A paraphrase from Alan Watts. Right? And so the simplicity is so incredibly simple, yet it is one of the most difficult things we possibly can do as entrepreneurs. But when we have that simplicity, people feel that we're focused. Right? When we have simplicity, people understand how to work with us. When we have simplicity, life is a lot easier for us. The third mindset block in marketing and funnels and sales and all this stuff that I've been talking to you with over the last 5 days is the fear of success and the fear of failure. They're both deep fears, right? So if we have the fear of failure, then we're not going to launch the funnel. If we have a fear of failure, we're not going to spend money on the ads. If we have a fear of failure because in our mind, failure is bad, and you don't see failure as just simply getting a result that was different than your expectations, it's going to stop you in your tracks. It's what stops so many people. They're like, well, that doesn't feel in alignment. Well, is it the fact that isn't in alignment, or is it the fact that you have a fear of failure? We always have to be careful that we don't spiritualize our fear. We don't spiritualize our anxiety, because I see a lot of people do that. And there's a massive difference between excitement and anxiety. There's a huge difference between, well, I'm fearful of putting it online, so that doesn't feel aligned for me. Okay, I see it every single day. Now, on the opposite side, we can have fear of success. And fear of success is, well, if this works, I'm going to have all these people that I could talk to. What the heck am I going to tell them? Right? If this works, I'm going to make money. And boy, that's confronting. And that could be confronting because your parents taught you that money's bad, that society tells you that making money is bad. It could be confronting because you know that you wouldn't stay with your partner, or you have circumstances in your life that really aren't aligned. And you know that once you have the abundance, you're going to change that. And there's some sense of loss, or even the loss of your current circumstances. I remember in 2013, I had some fear of success. I actually had a fear in 2013, 2014 of being successful again after going $1 million in debt, because there was a part of me that enjoyed the victim story that I was in debt. There was a part of me that enjoyed just living in a 300 square foot apartment, barely being able to make it. Because at least I was comfortable with that. You know, I didn't have to do big things. I didn't have to have responsibility. And I was kind of like, oh, poor little me. I can live under this poor little me victim mentality. And it's such an addictive thing that majority, unfortunately, of our society loves to enjoy. We have to allow ourselves to dissolve that so that we can actually have success. Because if we believe that success isn't good for us, if we actually have a fear of it, it is almost entirely impossible to ever be able to attract it. The next one is self-trust. I actually think it's actually the most important thing to do in life is to trust yourself, because if you don't trust yourself, you can't love yourself, because you wouldn't trust yourself to love yourself. If you can't trust yourself, you're not going to say yes or no ever. So you're just going to either not make decisions or actually not even follow alignment, because without self-trust, you actually don't know what alignment is. You're following somebody else's plan for your life. And so self-trust is one of these things that I'm not telling you that you just flick the fingers and have instantaneously. It takes time to be able to develop self-trust. But it's one of those things that if there's anything that I want to help somebody have in life when they come and I mentor them, yes, I'm mentoring them in business, but one of the best places to find self-trust is business, so that you can have it the rest of the places in your life. And so self-trust is important, because it's difficult to say, well, I'm going to go with this marketing funnel versus that marketing funnel, this thing versus this thing. When a lot of people that I work with, right, especially at before someone's making $100,000, $200,000 a month, majority of the time when I'm mentoring somebody, I am helping them decide what makes the most sense in their business, because either they don't have enough data to be able to trust themselves, or they don't trust themselves, and that's totally okay. A lot of coaching and mentoring is helping others be able to make the right decisions in that time and that gap of them not trusting themselves. And this is why I always tell people there is a time and a place for me to mentor you, because once you trust yourself with what I've been able to help you, when you can mentor and coach yourself and you fully trust yourself, the number of advisors and mentors and people around you are not needed as much anymore longer. Being seen. If you implement what I talk about with relevancy and omnipresence and intimacy, there's a high potential of being seen by more people than you've ever been seen by in your entire life. Okay. 6 years ago, I had an audience of, 800 people, and not a whole lot of people. It wasn't a sea of people. And I remember in 2016 during a launch, we had about 40,000 people sign up for this launch in 2016. And I freaked out. I straight up freaked out. I had a full-on panic attack that lasted, an entire night until about 5 a.m. in the morning. Oh my God, this is too much for me. And at the time, what really it was is that it energetically overloaded the ability of the container that I could hold. And it's because I was afraid to be seen. Now, the fear of being seen generally comes from the fact that there's some part of us that we're suppressing in our ability to be authentic. And that was the case in 2016. And so there's a part of us that we are fearful of being able to show, because we are afraid that it will be judged. We're afraid that we will be judged, which we'll talk about in a second. we are also afraid that we can't be fully authentic now. Or there's, like, as I said, a part of us that we're not really sharing with the world, and we have some shame or guilt around that. Which brings us to judgment. Judgment, hey, when you run ads, you're going to get some people that don't like that. You're going to get some hate mail. You're going to get some people that just you trigger. As I said the other day on day one, when someone's in the sidewalk, it's the easiest time to trigger them because you're giving them the truth. And a lot of the time when someone's in the sidewalk, they don't want the truth. Right? They don't want that truth. And so this fear of being judged stops people in their tracks, right? Because they put something out there and they don't want their work to be judged. They don't want this to be judged or that to be judged. And, we live in a society, actually we live in the fact that human beings, as a default method, judge. And we do this because that's how we survived. We judged a situation. A different word would be discerning, right? And we don't live in a society where there's just pure love for everything that we come across. Most people that are going to come across you are discerning, or the wounded version are judging. Is this important to me? Is this not important to me? Can I trust this? Can I not trust this? Does this trigger me? Does this not trigger me? All these things that are happening. And so you're going to get the reflection of this judgment as you build your business, as you build an audience, as you build your personal brand. There's no way around that. Normalization. Normalization is a big mindset block, such as, well, you know what? I've always got referrals, so I'm just going to keep doing it that way. The Facebook group always works, so I'm just going to keep doing that. Facebook ads I've been doing Facebook ads since 2013, so I'm just going to keep doing that. Normalizing your current reality is normal, right? But what's gotten you here won't get you to that next level. And what's gotten you here, perhaps on marketing and sales, or people just referring you, or you doing outreach, or whatever it might be, that's not the way, more than likely not the way of the future. If you're listening to this, if you're still here on day 5, that's more than likely not the way of the future. Right, so normalization of your current reality, that's what happens as entrepreneurs. And then we justify our current reality instead of evolving the reality, because a lot of the times we're fearful of what that new reality is. And our ego has a sense of loss when we need to adapt or adopt something rather that is new, that we haven't done before, because our ego says, well, I was wrong. I should have done this sooner. Why am I silly me? Why didn't I do this sooner? And of course, my answer to that is we're always in perfect time. Right? We're always on divine timing. If we used referrals and now you're going to use this new thing, well, that was what was meant to be for that time period of your life and the time of your business. As you build your business and as you build your marketing and your sales and everything that you do, enjoying the present makes it so that you don't feel overwhelmed on a daily basis. Right. So if you see this and you're like, well, I got all these things to do. Scott says I got to build 4 funnels, and hey, I joined his program, and there's this personalized assessment, and there's 13 things that I needed to do. Well, I got to get to the goal. I got to get it done. I got to do this. One of the things that, I don't have any regrets in my life. I've really released any of that. But, in 2015, if I look back, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2013, those years were so beautiful. I learned the things, I learned so many beautiful lessons during that time. And, it was painful, but there was a sense of fun to it, right? There was a fun to that. And so what happens is we wish away our life. We set goals. I see this so much. We set goals, we get to the goal, we set a new goal, we get to the goal, and our life's over. And being able to enjoy whatever you're in for the season that you're in. I had, this accelerator call yesterday with my accelerator group. And one of my clients, Nina, she said, what's one of the things that is most important for someone to know? And I said, at our stage, and I said, seasons, right? Being able to embrace the season you're in is one of the most important things, because when you're in summer, you can't enjoy summer unless you enjoy winter. You can't enjoy spring unless you enjoy fall. If you can't enjoy working, you're not going to enjoy the vacation. And if you can't enjoy the vacation, you're not going to enjoy working. So having that presence of being able to have the fun in the moment and enjoying the present makes it so that when you're writing the lead magnet, it feels fun. When you're not doing this where it was like, all right, I got to get it all done. I got to get it all done. And I only got 3 weeks to do it. It's having this attitude of, as I've said a minute ago, having this divine timing, perfect timing, and really enjoying that. If you put the marketing funnel out and it gets result X, there's no judgment around that result versus Y, and just enjoying the fact that, wow, I just did something and I now know more than I did a week ago or 2 weeks ago or a month ago or a year ago. And then finally, the thing that stops people from being, and keep in mind, this is what generally makes it so that people get overwhelmed with the plan for their marketing and sales, and so then they give up, right? Because if we don't enjoy it, this right here is what stops someone from actually enjoying the process. If you don't enjoy the process, it is going to be an obligation, not an opportunity, and we withdraw from things that are the obligation. And finally, the imposter syndrome. Wow, I'm not the best coach out there. I'm not the best consultant. I'm not the best healer out there. I'm not the best person. I'm not the best agency. I'm not the best service provider. And this stops a lot of people because they're like, well, there's people out there just so much better than me. How can I even put myself out there and think that I'm good? I got to tell you, I went through that. I continually go through that. I see, in the past, I've seen stuff. I'm like, wow, that's really good. And am I the best marketing and salesperson in the world? Probably not. But all I have ever done is just put out there my version of what I feel is authentic to me. And I resonate with the people that resonates with, and I don't have to worry about anything else. I don't have to think about that. And I also always tell people, if you're having imposter syndrome, it means for sure that you're good at what you do, because only the people that don't have any imposter syndrome, they probably need some. They probably need a little bit. Okay, so those are some of the mindset blocks that I see really stop people from being able to implement this marketing and sales stuff. So whenever we're building a business, whenever we're doing anything in life, we got a little bit of a seesaw that we got to work with, okay? And here's the seesaw. On one side, we got training, we got mentorship, and we got coaching, we got learning from masters and learning from people that have done it there and have gotten it, advisors, all this type of stuff, right? Because if we're in a place where we're not doing that, right, we're sort of like taking a super long route. And then on the opposite side of this kind of seesaw, we have implementation, learning via doing, and failing forward, and following flow, right? Following our intuition, what feels actually good. Now, here's what happens. Here's what I see happens a lot, okay? And I want to bring it up. Here's what happens. People rely on one of these two sides too much, all right? So we got this person over here that won't buy courses, won't buy programs, won't hire somebody to train them, won't hire mentors. They're just 100%, you know what, I'm going to figure it out myself. Now, generally, that is someone's ego being able to delude them, because their ego has to, in order to learn from somebody, the ego has to take like the back seat. In order to be mentored by someone, the ego has to take the back seat. In order to be trained by somebody, ego says, okay, let me turn the ego off and actually show up and let me learn. On the opposite side, we also have people that, do all the training, all the mentorship, all the coaching, have all the programs, all the courses, and all the things. But because they overanalyze it they're looking at the data, they're trying to make it perfect. They never actually start doing the implementation. They're afraid to fail, afraid to succeed, and they don't follow the flow because of the fact that they don't trust themselves. And so my belief is that we have to, really balance this. Right? And so there's seasons of being able to get training and mentorship and coaching, and there's seasons of implementing, learning, and following flow. But those entrepreneurs that I've mentored that really truly get it, as well as what I found was work best for me, is continually allowing this to happen inside of our life. So here's what I see a lot of people do. They're like, okay, well, for the next year, I'm only going to do training mentorship. I'm only going to learn from people. I'm just going to be in consuming mode. And then I get other people that are like, hey, Scott, yeah, you know what? I don't want to do this right now because, I'm in implementation mode. And I'm just like, if you're in implementation mode, you need help. And if you're over here waiting a year to be able to implement something, that is some university school bullshit that got fed into your subconscious and is not very unuseful inside of business. And so keeping the seesaw on a week-to-week basis, month-to-month basis, so that we're having this ability to consume and produce at the same time, utilizing this to be a feedback loop for our implementation, learning, and following the flow, allows for a business and allows for implementation that happens in a way that isn't kind of jigsawed, right? It isn't kind of like all over the place. It is a steady, consistent building of the business, steady, consistent building of who you are. And are there seasons where you're going to go more introspective? Absolutely. Are there times where you might take vacations or sabbaticals where you just, withdraw in order to be able to contextualize your life and see it from a different vantage point? Of course. But I find the majority of the time being able to, and this doesn't have to be mentorship, this doesn't have to be training, but the ability to learn and the ability to learn from others that have gone before you is what the internet has allowed. The reason why so much progression has happened in the last 30 years is because the internet existed, right? Because it allowed us to be able to have someone and say, oh, you know what? You don't have to spend 7 years to figure that out anymore. You can spend 2 weeks. And so this is only going to happen more and more and more. And I would even go to say that everybody that I support in, coaches and consultants and people that have services and people that sell knowledge and certifications and all these different types of things. When I took my sabbatical, I realized that's what helps level up consciousness, is the ability to be able to have this and integrate it with the implementing, failing forward, and being able to follow the intuition on a day-to-day basis. So over the last 5 days, I guess 4 days before this, we went through the ROI method, right? Relevancy, avatar, positioning, messaging, story, unfair advantage, levels of business, your brand story, all those elements. Went through omnipresence about platform and timing and frequency and the types of content, as well as on day 3, the intimacy of connecting, being able to have community and conversation rather. So that people are very easily able to come into your world, that you feel connected to them, that they continually see you, and you guide them to the fast lane of being able to make the decision inside of their life. Now, in terms of the implementation of this, and we're going to go through the kind of order here in a minute, I want you to realize that this isn't going to take you a day. You can't sit down and just plan this out and have the right version. And you're not going to nail the platform on day 1. Everything that you do, everything that I teach is very based upon the fact that this is going to work for the next 5 to 10 years. And so a lot of the time, unfortunately, when someone's selling something, they're trying to get you a quick win, right? So a quick win hits a dopamine, you record a video testimonial, more video testimonials means that person's able to get more and more clients. And so what ends up happening, I had a business partner of mine, and she used to be a one-on-one client. She might be here today. And she said, Scott, what I love is that you're looking on the long-term decision-making. And I've never had a mentor. I never had a coach that helped me actually do that. They were just focused on what's the next launch, what's the next, thing. And so, yes, of course, there's short-term wins with everything that I do, but I'm building for the long term. And this entire process will take you year after year after year after year after year. And it just gets better and better and better and better and better over time. because I'm not trying to give you some quick fix that's just going to give you a dopamine hit. I'm trying to make it so that on the journey of you being an entrepreneur for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and the journey of you teaching your kids about entrepreneurship and them teaching their kids about entrepreneurship, that this just passed down, because that's the ripple effect that I desire to have on the planet. Right? So here's some things that I want you to, as you go forward, regardless if we work together or not, I want you to really kind of think about. When it comes to the implementation of any strategy on marketing or sales, we, on a monthly basis, how do we know what to work on? We have to take a look at what is our core pain, what is the symptom of that pain, and why is that actually occurring? All right. So if you don't have, if you're relying on referrals, well, the symptom is you're going to have this up and down, like crazy months and then low months and then all over the place. And so then when you actually go to start planning this, you're going to be like, okay, well, I just don't want to do something. I could, call up all of my past clients and get them all to refer me. And I'm going to get a big month this next month, but then in 6 months, I'm going to have the same problem. So how do I plan the short and long-term planning? Because always in what we're doing, we have short-term over here and we have long-term over here. And here's another one of these wonderful little balancers right here. So let's say you do utilize referrals. But what you might have to do, you call somebody up while you're, so instead of calling everybody, all your past customers up and asking for referrals or who they can connect you with, you might do it with a couple of people, right? So that you can help on the short term. And then you're like, okay, cool. Well, I'm also going to work on this relevancy stuff and getting our funnel together and everything else, because over the next 6 months, in 6 months from now, I don't want this to be a problem anymore because I'm ready to solve that. Right. So everything that we look at, we need to look at a lens of being able to balance the short term and long term together, because what happens in most of the cases is that we're putting all of our eggs into the short term basket, and that makes it so that we can never actually build a business the right way. We're always following the dopamine hits, right? Always following the dopamine hits instead of being able to follow the long term plan that's actually going to build wealth. It's actually going to build fulfillment, and it's going to make it so that not at the end of every month, going to the next month, you're like, okay, got to do this all over again. The next part, when you're deciding, when you have the short and long-term plan in front of you, we want to put everything down to, okay, here's the problem, right? Here's the opportunity of what we get to evolve, all right? Here's how we actually are going to do it, right? This is what feels good. And then I'll talk about how to find what that is in a minute. Let's break this down into the things that I actually need to do, the outcome that I actually need to be able to create. And then I just rinse and repeat this. And this is actually how we go from being able to hire people, right? This is the exact same process that we utilize for being able to hire somebody, because when we hire somebody, this is the exact same thing that we got to give them in order to be able to set them up for success. Doesn't matter if it's a marketing person, doesn't matter if it's a salesperson, doesn't matter if it's a customer success person. This is the same framework. Right. So first we are like, okay, here's what we want to change. Here's the symptoms. Here's the issues. What do we need to focus on? Right. What do we need to focus on right now? What is the long-term plan versus the short-term plan? Hey, I still got to pay the bills. Still got to have cash flow. Still got to bring clients in. Still got to make money. But we need to build the long-term version of this. Then we build this into this sort of problem solution, task and outcome. And then we embody this with the 6-pillar assessment that I talked about on day one, right? Being able to take a look at every single part of your business. So you're doing this for marketing and sales and operations. You're doing this for finance, mindset, delivery, right? Every single part of your business, so that you have an entire view and you're updating this on a weekly and monthly basis. So one of the biggest reasons that an entrepreneur doesn't get momentum and evolution is because of the fact that they're just kind of stuck in the here and now. They don't have the ability to kind of like look with the larger picture. And because of that, we're not focusing our energy, our attention, and our awareness on the things that we actually need to. The entire year passes and we're like, what the heck even happened? We're not intentional and conscious about what's going on. And it's actually not that hard. This is an exercise that takes a couple of hours a month, maximum. Right? And so we do this in anything that we do. It doesn't matter if it's a marketing funnel, doesn't matter if it's a new social media platform, the relevance, every element of our business. I'm teaching you this so that you can apply it to every element of your business. Yes, we talked about marketing and sales today, but if you want to implement anything into your business, this is how you look at it. Because the truth is, your business success comes down to just only a couple of things. Right? It comes down to you making the right choices at the right time that are aligned for you, that have a strategy that's based upon some level of view of actual understanding, right? You know, it's like you can have a great alignment, a great timing, great choices, but if the strategy doesn't align to something that's actually even possible. Right? It's like the person, if you start a membership and you have one person in your audience and no money, I can tell you that it doesn't matter how aligned that is. The chances of that having momentum in the next 12 months is very, very unlikely. Right? So being able to take strategy, right? Alignment, timing, and choices. So think about this. A lot of entrepreneurs, they know what they need to do, but they don't know in what order. You also have a lot of entrepreneurs that they have a strategy that isn't aligned. The strategy has to make sense on paper and it has to make sense in alignment, both. You also have a lot of people that they have alignment, but their choices and timing don't make sense to their alignment. They're making their choices and their timing out of fear and out of their wounded place instead of their empowered place. And when we do this, when we add this together, we're able to make the right choices at the right time. We're able to have an aligned business, and we're empowered inside of our business. And you got to remember that 1 degree can change absolutely everything. When you're going with the amount of momentum that you have a little to the left, and you're not going to end up into the place where you actually want to end up. Okay. So how do you make decisions about what direction you go? Right. The easiest question to do to actually ask yourself whenever there's something is, number one, what gives me the most relief? All right. Now you got to be careful that you're not allowing your wounded self to talk here, but what gives me the most relief is a really easy question to ask in almost all life scenarios. Because generally what gives you relief is going to make you to decrease your anxiety, both short and long term. Yeah, a lot of time more longer term than short term. And it allows you to make decisions that are very empowered to what you actually need. So if you're there and you're like, I don't know if I need to make this decision about, this thing or whatever it might be. And it's like, okay, well, does having 10 new clients a month give me relief? Yeah. Does having not the idea that that's possible give me relief? No. Okay. Well, awesome. No, we need to fix that problem. Right? It's a very instantaneous, from an intuition and intellectual place, giving you the ability to know what you actually need, what path you need to follow. When you're making any decisions, what resources can actually be utilized? And what are you willing to be able to utilize in terms of energy, time, money, whatever resources you have to be able to make a change in your business, to be able to scale, to be able to implement whatever it might be. Knowing what that looks like, knowing what you're willing to do is going to give you the ability to say, okay, what's possible? Right? Because you got a lot of people trying to build multi-million-dollar businesses and they're trying to do it on a shoestring budget. And it's just not possible. And I'm also not telling you to gamble the entire lot. I'm not a big believer of gambling. I'm not a big believer of going all in on something. But you understanding what that scenario looks like for you in your life and what you're comfortable with really allows you to know what the actual expectation can be on the opposite side, on that resultant side. So that when you're evolving your marketing, or you're hiring a team member, or you're doing this or whatever it is, you actually know what's possible instead of just having this delusioned version of what is possible. Right? There's always a combination of what your resources can actually do, what your time, energy, and money can do. Anytime you're making any decision for implementation, what is the timeline for momentum? Because if the timeline for momentum doesn't match up what's needed in the business, You may need to spend more time or more energy or change the plan accordingly. And if you know that you need, X investment to make money back by this time, well, you may need to also do X, Y, and Z along with that investment to be able to build that momentum in the timeline. So I'll give you an example. In 2016, I knew I needed to spend X on a launch. I didn't have X number of dollars on a launch in order to get to where I wanted to be. So I went out, I took on 5 one-on-one clients, I made the money so that I could actually go with the plan that felt right from my intuition and intellect and be able to do it in a way that actually felt good to me. Which brings down to weighing the intellect and the intuition, right? I believe that all entrepreneurs should be weighing their decision-making with their intuition and their actual intellectual. I do not believe that decisions should be based purely on intuition. I believe there is the ability to be able to weigh both of those. And when we do that, we make really good, grounded, embodied decisions. Whereas intellect decisions are, hey, as long as it makes sense on paper, let's go. The intuition is, as long as my belly says, yes, let's go. And I find doing both of those allows us to make the best decisions for implementing whatever it is into our life and especially into our business. Changing gears here. Does blank matter for me? Do I need Unbounce? Do I need a landing page creator? Do I need WordPress? Do I need to use ads? Do I need this? Do I need this? Do I need this? Does that matter to me? Along the way, you get a lot of people that I've gotten, get kind of confused on the smaller details. Now, the smaller details are very, very important. But what happens is our anxiety likes to show its face in the finer details because there's an unknown and because we have to trust ourselves. So what happens is somebody sits around for a month trying to figure out what software to use and spends 20 hours researching a bunch of different software. And I say, well, listen, let's get started on what makes, just what feels like it can actually work. And if we need to change later, we can. And a person's like, well, but then I'm wrong. I'm like, okay, cool. You're wrong. Awesome. That's good. Great. Wonderful. You're wrong. And now we are closer to being able to get momentum. And so, of course, it's important. I think it's really easy to get around these finer details from being able to, listen to someone like myself or some mentor, someone that's done it, ahead of you. But this stuff gets people so paralyzed by and analyzing all these different pieces of information that they never actually get to being able to help people. I see some people, they spend 3 months building all this process and automation in their business structure. And I'm like, hey, where's your clients to? And they're like, oh, I don't have any clients yet. And it's all stemmed out of this perfectionism, all stemmed out of this, am I good enough? All stemmed from this proving energy and also stemmed from, well, I don't want to be wrong. Guess what? You're going to be wrong. You just got to get over the fact that you're going to be wrong. If you feel triggered every single time you're going to be wrong, you're going to have a terrible relationship. You're going to have a terrible relationship with your parents. You're going to have a terrible relationship with your significant other. You're going to have terrible friendships, a terrible business, and your entire life is going to feel like you're just consistently triggered by absolutely everything, which may or may not be the entire reason why social media is such a shit show that it is and continues to be on a daily basis for a majority of society because, we're afraid to be wrong. We can't be afraid to be wrong. If you're afraid to be wrong as an entrepreneur, you are constantly going to get stopped every single day. So when you're wrong, you're like, oh, I'm wrong. If you need to apologize to someone for the fact you're wrong, great. And now let's go to what looks closer to the way that we actually need to go. I wanted to talk about doing it yourself versus when it comes to marketing and sales and omnipresence and relevant, all these different types of things. Doing it yourself versus hiring an agency versus hiring a team. Vast majority of people I'm going to tell that are here, do it yourself. Why? Because if you, particularly with marketing and sales, if you are outsourcing your marketing and sales, you are outsourcing your ability to get new clients. I personally believe that every single entrepreneur should know how to get clients, attract them, and turn them into actual customers. I think that every entrepreneur does not need to be at a place, and again, this is for somebody that's doing less than 2 to 3 million a year. When you understand how something works and you decide, I no longer want to do that, then it's time to go hire. But what people do is they're like, well, I don't know Facebook ads, so, I'm going to go hire somebody. And I'm like, well, that's great and all, but why don't you try it? Like, understand it. Why don't you spend a little time to understand it? But again, it gets into this like, well, I don't understand it, so I'm going to trust somebody else with it. And so it's easier to be able to learn what it is. Of course, having mentorship and having someone that can train you and help you is valuable. But what most people do is they go down here first. And listen, I've owned agencies. I'm all for agencies. I'm sure there's lots here watching this. You should hire an agency when you are like, okay, you know what? It makes sense to be able to outsource this entire piece or this entire part, because that's not something that we're going to be good at and we don't want to get good at it. When you hire someone to be able to do a part, if you hire somebody, for example, to do your copywriting and you don't know how to do your own copywriting, their ability to become a good copywriter is going to be really difficult because you don't even understand your relevancy. Like, you don't even understand that element. And so when you hire, of course, there's improvements that are made because they can focus on that because you're focusing on a bunch of other things. But being able to do things yourself is one of those that we as entrepreneurs, it's like, well, hire people and outsource. And I totally agree with that. Outsourcing is one of the highest, and delegating is one of the highest forms of self-care and self-love. But people do it far too early. And then they've outsourced their ability to get new clients and to make money. I'm never going to outsource my ability to make money. I'm just not going to happen. Right? And it's all because a lot of the time we don't trust ourselves with it. But if we leaned into learning it and then we trust ourselves, now we can hire an agency or hire a person from an empowered place where we're understanding how to train them, understanding what KPIs to look for, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And we're able to build a business in a much better place. So we went through this on day one. My idea of being able to teach all of this to you is so that you can go from here, whether it's referrals or whatever marketing and sales that you've done to this point. So from this crazy roller coaster, and so that eventually 6 months from now, 12 months from now, a year and a half from now, you can get to a little bit more of a chill roller coaster, maybe the kiddie coaster, right? This one up here, this is the Kraken. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a lot of fun. It's great for your adrenaline and dopamine and everything else. Not a good time for this one here. This one's fun. It's a merry-go-round. And then, of course, what we eventually want to get to is being able to just simply be able to be in that flow of life, but to have a consistent baseline. Right? That consistent, yes, there's going to be up weeks and down weeks, up months and down months. I don't make the same amount of money every single month. And I certainly don't make more money every single month that goes on. I followed that dragon before, and it's not a fun one. A lot of people, I used to even teach this. I used to even teach this before I knew the difference. A lot of people, they want this growth curve or they want that growth curve, right? The hockey stick or the linear continued growth. This one here, it actually isn't possible, which is not how business works. This one right here is chasing a dragon. Yeah, not good things happen. And I guarantee you fulfillment, alignment, and balance don't work with either one of those. So my highest hope for you is to have this baseline that continues to increase over time, but knowing that there's seasons, there's high months, low months. There's times that there's going to be some problems and issues, opportunities to solve new problems. But it's not this crazy Kraken roller coaster that, makes you hang on for dear life. So in relation to the stages of implementation, we have relevancy, intimacy, omnipresence, funnels, and optimization, growth, and innovation, right, being the last one. And so, relevancy in relation here to intimacy, omnipresence, funnels, everything that I've taught to you, you've got to remember that you're going to continually work on these over time. But if you're here and you're like, well, what do I work on first? Relevancy, there's nobody here that it doesn't make sense to work on relevancy. And then, so the question is like, okay, well, in terms of intimacy, in terms of my selling, in terms of building community, in terms of being able to actually close sales, it's actually a lot of the time better to start with intimacy before omnipresence, because you can make money within intimacy, and then you can take that energy and put it into omnipresence. So even though it's ROI, a lot of the time it's not implemented that way. It's RIO, relevancy, intimacy, omnipresence, in terms of the way that it's implemented. Now, if you already have momentum, then obviously you want to be implementing omnipresence, and only at which time, right, do you already have momentum should we be implementing sort of a funnel. I don't believe that everybody should have a funnel. Right? If you're just starting out, it's way better for you to spend all your time on intimacy than spending, 80 hours building a funnel out that almost nobody's going to see because you don't have the money or the time to be able to show people. Right? And certainly where you don't want to be in optimization and A/B split testing and doing, all this optimization, or even innovation, or even being able to try to grow these things by doing it over and over and over, building this funnel and this funnel and this funnel, unless we actually already have momentum, we have cash coming in, we have audience that's building. And so what ends up happening is that people go through and they're like, all right, we got relevancy, we got the funnel, we got omnipresence, let's take 90 days, let's develop all of it, push the launch button and hope for the best. That is not how this works, right? This is an ongoing process where you're implementing relevancy and you're utilizing that on your daily basis. You're utilizing intimacy, all these things, and they're just getting better and better and better and better over the span of years, months, right? I know I'm going all over different places, but I'm trying to give you concepts and principles that are going to make it last for years here, right? I could go on the real tactical 30-foot, but you would do something for the next 14. I would make you feel empowered for the next 14 days. And on day 15, you're like, shit, I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on. Right? That's why I like teaching this, because of the fact that it's so useful for everything, not just in life, but particularly in business and even more zoomed in marketing and sales. So the types of entrepreneurs, and this relates back to the levels of consciousness for business, okay? But when you go to implement, all right? So we got the willful, solving the problem. Listen, we got a problem, I'm gonna solve it. I'm gonna will my way through. I'm gonna push my way through it. If I'm not gonna push my way, I'm gonna pull my way through it. I'm gonna get a rope on that shit, I'm gonna make it happen. And so this person, right, this person's generally, willful consciousness is actually very useful when you're building funnels and building marketing and sales. Now, a lot of the time, those folks, when you are in the willful, you fail a lot. It takes a while for you to like dial it in, right? Because you're just kind of like shiny light syndrome. Let's go. Now, we have the data analysis and systems person that's like, hey, listen, I want the whole automation to work from day one. I'm going to spend 9 months to be able to make this. Let's just make it amazing. Right. I want it amazing from day one. And let me analyze, this training and this training and this training. And let me take what 10 people say, and then I'll figure out what makes the best sense for all of them. So interestingly enough, both of these people might take the same amount of time to be able to figure it out. Right. Now, if there was a hybrid of both of them, we'll get to that in a minute. If there was a hybrid of both of them, it'd probably take them a couple of months instead of a year. And then we have the creative folks, right? The creative folks where we want to like launch new things out all the time. Forget about the old. We want the new. Here's the creation. Wow. Last month I was doing this, and this month I'm doing this, right? If channeled incorrectly, the creative have wonderful creative ideas and expressions and things that they want to share with the world, but barely anyone ever gets to see them. And then, of course, we have the outgoing versus introverted entrepreneur. The introverted entrepreneur, well, I don't want to sell anything. And the outgoing entrepreneur, the person that can sell so many things, but then they can't actually even deliver it. So you're probably going to resonate with 1 to 2 of these 4. And when you're coming to implementation, I hate using the word evolved entrepreneur. What does that mean? But the entrepreneur that has the highest level of momentum and success, and is able to really kind of like collapse time in a way, is able to take these 4 and utilize them to their advantage and channel and structure them the right way, so that they can actually, solve the problem and go and do the things. But they're not overanalyzing and trying to build something that is, I see some entrepreneurs, they build marketing systems that, honest to God, are better than ones that I've seen in $10 million businesses, $10 million a year businesses. I talked to you yesterday about the fact that you need to use your creativity for launches, but you shouldn't just be kind of like, having 47 products on your website just because this month, this thing, or the person that just keeps on having the same group of people and launching things over and over and over and over to the same group of people, never expanding the audience, never solving the problem of them being able to bring more energy and increase the energetic container that they have. The outgoing and the introvert generally comes in relation to their own management of energy. Right? The outgoing person learning how to be able to source energy from themselves, and the introverted person being able to understand how to integrate other people's energy into their own container. Because the combination of this person is a person that's best at marketing and sales. And is also the person that doesn't get overwhelmed being around other people, right? Doesn't have their ego activated around other people, and at the same time is completely okay being by themselves, being able to be in this kind of continued outgoing and introverted way, depending on what makes sense on any given week, any given month. Instead of just being like, well, you know what, I only do sales pages because I'm not comfortable doing webinar. Or saying, hey, I'm only going to do in-person sales because I only want to be around people. I love being around people, so I'm only going to do it around being people, but cutting yourself off completely from all the people that don't want to be in person or can't be in person. And so we want to combine these. I'm going to come back to this because I want to go down here. So what I just told you about and combining those elements, that's what a lot of people miss. And so instead of combining them, they're like, okay, well, I'm the operations type, so I'm not going to evolve that. I'm just going to really I'm going to really lean into that. And what I found is, yes, you can lean into what you're good at and what's natural to you, but when you're able to build those, 4 elements, magic happens. Now, I want to parallel it with the levels of business. Levels of consciousness for business for a minute. When we're able to, so let's say you're in Willful and you're like, okay, well, you know what? My advantage is the fact that I can work 14 hours and I can work more than those people that are intellectual, intuitive. Because you know what? I got that energy. I got that figured out right now. The intellectual person's like, okay, well, you know what? I got the systems, I got the structure, I got the data, I got the planning, I got all that type of stuff. So I'm don't work hard. I'm going to work smart. And the intuitive person sitting there being like, well, you know what? I'm going to get just downloads from the universe. And so I know exactly what I need to do. Now, that's one way of being able to go around and do business and do life. I believe that we can combine these. Because I believe that we should be able to go out and go on the mountain and get that download from the universe, from our intuition, from being able to take ourselves out of context and look at the larger picture. And then I think we should be able to come back and to intellectualize it. That's definitely not a word, but we're going to go with it. And we can come back and actually plan, analyze, understand what makes sense, right? Get input from others if needed, be able to understand that, is this the strategy? Is this what we actually want to do? And then once it's coming from our intuition, coming from what I believe a lot of people might believe, a higher place from the universe itself, and we're able to actually bring it into the intellect, our mind, our ego, right? People say the ego's bad. The ego's not bad. The ego's just misused. Then we can come into the willfulness to be able to go out and actually make it work. And when we do this, we're not in the wound of willful, right? We're not just in the let's work 14 hours because that's what we know how to do. We feel empowered, we feel aligned, balanced, we have harmony, success, and we have fulfillment because we're able to transition from these different levels on a day-to-day basis. Should you look at your finances when you're intuitive? No, but you know what? It probably is a good idea before you actually go and sit down with your accountant or look at your bank account or look at your numbers, to be in your intuitiveness, to be able to connect with the universe, to realize that you have infinite abundance, and that number or whatever your situation is just a snapshot in time. Because if not, I guarantee you go there and you're in your intuitiveness, you're going to spiritually bypass what's actually going on. So when we're in an analysis, when we're looking at our bank account, when we're looking at more intellectual, what happens is someone goes intellectual and they're like, well, I got to work more because I'm looking at the bank account don't have what I want in it, instead of seeing the entire picture. Now, when we're in marketing, we're building marketing, right? So we're looking at a funnel, we're looking at a relevancy document, right? And we're already stressed out, right? Already stressed out. So our wounded self is already coming out. And we're like, I don't know who to sell. I don't know who to sell to. No one ever told me how to. I don't understand this positioning. What the heck is positioning? I don't get positioning. And so now we're anxious. Right? We're anxious. And so instead of being able to step back and go out for the 2-hour walk and be like, well, who do I want to? Instead of taking the time to sit on a mountain so that we can actually understand what we really want to resonate with and what we really identify with, we instantaneously go, a lot of the time, to willful. Or even worse, we go to intellectual, we get it all planned out, and we're like, yeah, we're going to sell this to these people. And then the next day you wake up and you're like, I don't even like those people. I don't even like selling that thing. Okay, so being able to build these together makes us that, let's say you're building a marketing funnel. Do I go and start writing like this in order to find my hooks and the names of things and how I'm going to form? No, I go for a drive. I go on a couple-day vacation. I go on, if any time that I'm wanting to build something, I am not coming here and sitting down on the computer. I'm doing shit I love, because that activates this intuitiveness, this ability to context switch. And then once I get it, I'm like, okay, how do I want that to feel? Right? How do I want that to feel in my body? How do I want that to feel for somebody else? And then I'm able to actually be able to bring it into the intellectual. And I say, okay, we're going to need this and we're going to need this. And here's our deliverables. And here's how we're going to plan it. Here's our project management. And here's all this type of stuff. And then I take the plan, right? I come from intellectual and then I go back to intuitive. And I'm like, okay, does this feel right? Am I bringing my ego too much into this? Am I bringing expectation into this? Okay, let me find what needs to be aligned. Boom. All right, now we got the plan. Sweet. Now, whoever on my team or whoever in my world that needs that, people on your team need to be in these 3 levels as well, right? You don't want your execution person that's doing the implementation to be 99% in the intuition, because I got to tell you, landing pages don't just get manifested from thin air. Like there's work that goes into it, right? But now we actually have a plan, and now we can bring it into the willful. But because the intuition utilizes it, it feeds the energy, because the intellectual part was actually built into it. We have the ability for the smartest, most condensed plan that doesn't make it so that you're doing all these things that are just coming from the wounded, willful, reactive. And now we're able to build marketing or set whatever it is in life from these 3 parts. And I really, truly believe this is what builds a balanced, aligned business that really creates harmony, is being able to transition from these 3 levels of consciousness on a daily and weekly basis, right? So what happens a lot of the time here, when someone's making a sales decision, so there's a lot of people right now that are like, hey, I don't know if I want, hey, Scott, we're having a conversation back and forth to see if we're working with each other. And I can actually tell in their tone, in what how they are approaching a sales conversation because of past anxiety, trauma, whatever it might be. So we're taught in society, we're taught by our parents a lot of the time, right? Or we've had a traumatic experience. We said yes to something and it didn't work out the way that it was. And so because these 3 levels of consciousness aren't grounded, here's what's happening. The intuitive person's like, well, if that feels good at some point in the future, I'll do it. And I'm like, that's great. I'm all good for it. All cool. The intellectual person's like, well, let me look at the data and how's this going to work? And what's the 4 steps? And I need to understand how all this is going to work. And the willful person's going to say, well, how many hours a day is this going to take? Because I got 14 and I'm using 13 of them already. How much time is it going to take? How am I going to pay for this? How's this all going to kind of work? All right, so the willful person, so in each one of these sides, when they're not connected, when somebody doesn't have this connected, the wounded side of each comes out to play. instead of realizing that it's like, okay, well, let me take a moment and let me go into the intellectual and let me go into the willful and let me go into the intuitiveness to be able to say, does this decision make sense for me on each level? And am I in the wounded version of my past that is my subconscious allowing me to make decisions that are going to keep me in the past? I'm seeing it on a moment by moment basis. I could literally screenshot and share with you the specific word choices that people are having in the text message. There's nothing wrong with this whatsoever. Okay. There's nothing wrong with this at all. What I'm bringing it up so that you have awareness and attention to the fact that by combining these, we're able to get to much more quickly to abundance and alignment and balance versus being in a place where we're utilizing one of these as our primary source of consciousness on a daily basis. And a lot of the time utilizing it as an excuse to be able to get towards that alignment. Now we're going to go back a little less of an intuitive conversation, a little bit more of a strategic one. So what do you do on the way from, $0 to $150,000 a month? Now, so the person that's under, I'm actually right here. The person that's under generally, we need to be concerned with relevancy and intimacy. Okay, because we got to get momentum. If we don't have momentum, if I cannot get you creating energy inside of your business, the business don't have the energy to have momentum. At this, right? Generally, we need to redefine relevancy, right? Generally, we need to systemize intimacy. And this is at the place in which we're going to start being able to implement some omnipresence and be able to take some of the cash that you're making on a monthly basis and be able to bring it into expanding the energetic container and the number of people that actually see you. At this point, this is where we really need to focus on funnels. Now, if we haven't focused and dialed these things in, we need to dial them in, because if not, it's likely because of the fact that you're either highly relevant. If you're at 50,000 a month and you haven't done funnels, you haven't done these other things, generally it's the fact that you either have high intimacy or high relevancy and intimacy. Okay. So funnel and omnipresence, and I'm talking just purely on marketing side of what we need to focus on. At 75, as we're getting up here. Now, this is a lot about structure, right? And a lot about diversification and being able to take all of these and optimize and really structure the right way. Because if you want to go from 100,000 to 400,000, you have to have the right diversity in where your traffic and audience is coming from. You need to have the 4 stages of omnipresence implemented. You have to really be able to build a structure so that at 300,000, the whole thing doesn't break, which I already just talked about, 150 plus. Okay. Now, there's a lot of parts and pieces inside of, each one of these, but generally, that's what we're looking at based upon the revenue, assuming that at each stage you have 30 to 50% profit margin, right, before paying yourself. If we don't have that, then of course there's likely issues inside of the business that we need to work on to be able to bring up the profitability. That if your profitability is below 30%, in a business that is based on not widgets, right, not e-commerce, right, not volume. Coaching, consulting, information, knowledge, authors, experts, mentorship, services, okay? It's because there's energy leaks in the structure of the business, structure of the marketing, structure of the 6 pillars that we've spoken about, okay? Now, when you're scaling over the span, let's say you're going from 10 to 30, 30 to 50, 50 to 100K a month, all right? So people, I talked about it before, people want this like up like this. Oh, I didn't mean to actually write it. This is what you want to do instead. You grow and you grow, peak, wait, peak, wait. And this could be every 3 months. This could be every 6 months. This could be every year. The problem that people have is that they start growing in this kind of curve. Now I actually do want to write. They start growing in this curve. If you start growing in this curve and you go up here, your entire business is going to break at some point. You're either going to have incredibly low profitability. The business is either going to start breaking, delivery is going to start breaking. You're going to have massive problems with customer delivery and customer retention. You're going to run out of money to be able to grow the business. A bunch of problems you never actually want to come across. I've been there, done it. I've got 1,002 t-shirts to show for it. And I never ever want another entrepreneur to have to do that. By doing this, we're able to make change. We're able to get more energy. We're able to utilize that energy to get ready for that next growth, energy for next growth. And at these stages, it might be mentorship, it might be technology, it might be team, it might be whatever investments that you need to make. But this requires patience, right? This requires you to see the next 10 years. What do most entrepreneurs want? I need the next 30 days. I want growth the next 30 days. I want growth. I want growth. I want growth. They're so fixated on being able to get it right now that then the whole thing grows, and then they got to burn the whole business down. They got to shut it down. They go bankrupt. They run out of cash. Bad things happen when we do this. But when we scale it in this way, we're able to have intentional, conscious growth that creates consistency in our life. And again, we're not on the roller coaster, right? We're on just a nice flow of life instead. So then the question is, when do you scale, right? How do you know it's time to scale, kind of go to that next level versus to stay where you're two? The first part is, you know why you want to scale and you have conviction to be able to scale. You have conviction of being able to want to grow this, right? Now, the reason doesn't matter. If you want to be able to buy your dream home, great. You want to buy your dream car, great. If you want to go luxury vacations, I don't care what it necessarily is. I truly believe that if you do not fill up your own cup, being able to help other people. So when people downplay material possessions, I think that is you don't understand the 5 levels of hierarchy of needs, and you especially don't understand the 8 levels. You especially don't. So when somebody's like, yeah, I want my dream house, I'm like, awesome. I know later down the road, that's not going to motivate them anymore. Hey, I want my first $20,000 a month. Awesome. I'm not going to downplay that. That's what you want. Doesn't matter. But you need the conviction behind it. You actually have to have something that you really actually want to do. The second thing, when you scale, it can't be embodied with the neediness, meaning, well, you know what? I want to become a millionaire because once I become a millionaire, I'm going to be happy. Right? Once I become a millionaire, everything's going to change. I have to tell you, if you're unhappy now, no amount of money is going to make you more happy. Right? No amount of success is going to make you more happy. And that creates this neediness, which I love the way I spelled that, by the way. Why and neediness? I laughed at myself and I couldn't erase it because I thought it was too funny. And so there's this embodiment a lot of the time when we're scaling and being like, well, life's going to change at 20K a month. Life's going to change at 50K a month. Life's going to change at 100K a month. And this creates this neediness of like, well, I got to get there because once I get there, my whole life is going to change. Instead of realizing that like your life changes because you decide you want your life to change and your mindset changes. And generally it's the fact that your mindset changes, which is why your reality changes. And no amount of success, financial or business, is going to help that. And it also slows it down because when you have this neediness energy, nobody wants neediness energy. People want to be around other people that are just fine with themselves and okay with themselves, relaxed inside of themselves. Third, which is you have clarity, focus, and energy, right? I'll do 3 and 4 together. So clarity, focus, and energy around what it is you want to scale. It feels aligned and you feel excited, all right? Now, you got to remember, anxiety and excitement are very similar emotions. It's in which way your body is perceiving the actual emotion, okay? And so this is where a lot of the time, what we help entrepreneurs with is to allow them to get clarity, focus, so that they can flow their energy, which allows them to be aligned, which gives them the excitement to be able to say, oh, wow, I have all this energy to do this. I'm excited to do this. I understand the way to be able to do it. And now I can be in these 3 levels of consciousness and be doing this on a daily basis. So then we have fueling growth, because being able to grow takes energy, right? And so in a business context, we have the ability to fuel growth from cash flow, right? Prepayments and launches, like people paying you up front, you being able to launch, be able to get kind of a lot of excitement and energy at one time. We have credit and debt and savings. So what do you use for each? And how do you use these inside of a business? Okay. This is so important. My recommendation is kind of like this. If you're using credit and debt, We do not want to hire a team with credit and debt. We do not want to do ad spend with credit and debt. The only thing that I have personally utilized credit for that has ever made sense and that I've ever advised someone with is to be able to utilize it as energy to get ahead on something that otherwise you wouldn't be able to. That is going to have an infinite level of return, which is why I don't recommend spending it on ads because it has a finite amount of return, or team because it has a finite amount of return. So if I'm using debt, I would only be using it for mindset, community, which is a connection, right? Or to have a guide kind of up and down, right? I also wouldn't go all in, right? I wouldn't go all in. Savings is pretty much the same thing. So here's what happened last year when we had all these SBA loans, right, in America. So a lot of businesses were getting $50,000 to $500,000, right? And I was like, listen, don't spend it on team because in 12 months from now, you're not going to be able to afford them. And they're like, well, it'll catch up. I'm like, that's not how that works. When I was in 2011, that is how I ended up in debt. I used credit and debt and savings in order to hire a team and infrastructure because I was like, well, the business will get built to that level. Well, the problem is you have this runway and this runway issue, right? So the two places that I use money to be able to build infrastructure, spend marketing dollars, be able to do this is when I can get people to prepay me when I'm doing launches and I have cash flow. I have no problem spending money that I quote unquote don't have, being able to help see the world a different way. And I've done that. I've done that really up until 2018 where I no longer needed to do that. But this year, what happens is that people invest their cash flow and prepayment on their launches differently than sort of the same way as credit and debt and savings. And doing that really, 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 really creates an energetic problem, right? Because every single one of these have their own energy, right? Every single one of these has their own energy because cash flow is allowing the cash that's flowing from the current energetic body to go to work. Prepayments and launches allow for essentially energy. You're taking energy from the future and you're bringing it into the now. With debt and credit, you're using energy that's not yours to bring it into the container to be able to then outflow that back to what isn't yours. And savings is you're taking energy from another depository that is yours and bringing it over. You're kind of transferring that energy over. Okay. We talked a lot about marketing and sales over the last 5 days. But I want you, this is another one of these balancing acts. We have marketing and sales, and then we have operations and team. And we have to balance them, right? So if we don't have enough marketing and sales, aka enough leads and enough people buying something, we're going to be in a situation where we can't grow, right? We don't have any momentum. On the opposite side, if we have too much marketing, if we have too many leads and too much demand, and we open up that demand, we're going to have unhappy people. We're going to have to hire a team in an unideal situation. We're going to have to be in a situation where we don't have process and structure and we're going to become overwhelmed. And to all add this together, we also have to manage our finances and our mindset in the right way. Because if not, we're going to make the wrong decisions with marketing and sales and finance. We're going to make the wrong decisions with our operations, hiring team, the way we deliver, the type of product we actually have. And so this is this continued balancing act on a daily basis. Because if you show me someone's mindset, I'll show you the way that they're actually manage their finances. If you give me a balance sheet, I'll tell you what mindset issues that need to be evolved for that next level. If you showed me someone's marketing, the way that they go about sales, I'll share with you how operations and team need to evolve because they all interconnect. The way you do marketing changes the way you do operations. The way you do operations change the way that you're able to actually manage the finances and the energy inside of your business. Okay, so the 6 pillars, this is what my 6-pillar book, The Nuclear Effect, is based upon. And I've taught you the marketing and sales, but you got to realize that marketing and sales is the number one thing that can break your business. Right? One of the biggest problems I've had is, and why I actually wrote The Nuclear Effect, is because I helped all these people with marketing and sales. They make all this money and then they blow up their business, right? Because they didn't get this side right. So it's about being able to manage all these pillars at the same time. So I realized a couple of years ago, through working with so many entrepreneurs and helping so many people evolve in their business, scale in their business, hit multiple 6, multiple 7, some 8+ figures in their business, that every entrepreneur needs these things, right? So they need the strategy and they need the planning, right? Without the strategy and the planning and being able to have that intellectual side and know what actually works, they could be going down a 2-year path and kind of be going the wrong way, right? Without personal development mindset work, you're not able to actually see your life. You're not able to actually see your business through an actual clear lens, right? You're seeing it through a foggy pair of glasses, right? And so what I found is that personal development and mindset work is incredibly important. You cannot be a successful entrepreneur and not do that work at the same time, right? You're going to get blocked. It's just going to be very difficult to do. I found that all of the 6 pillars, there are systems that are required for each when it comes to marketing, sales, operations, delivery, finance, right? All of the pillars of business, there are systems that make it so that instead of you having to spend, a year to figure something out, 2 years to figure something out, it can take 2 weeks. The right information, which goes to pillars, but most of the time when we consume information, the problem is the fact that it's not curated for us. What you need to learn when you're making $5,000 a month is very different than $50,000 a month. And this is the problem with YouTube and a lot of the online education, is the fact that it's kind of trying to say one size fits all. And so what happens is you have to consume 10 times more information and you're trying to sort it and curate it when you don't actually even know how to curate it because you've never done it before. You need accountability. Accountability is very, very important, especially when you're in this place of doing something that you've never done before, especially when you don't fully trust yourself. Accountability allows you to trust yourself at a higher degree until you can be at this place of being empowered to fully trust yourself, in which the desire and need for accountability is no longer. Having community and people around that really truly feel connected, as well as being a step ahead, as well as having people that are a step before you. And this community, kind of like this 33, 33, 34 type of community, allows for you to be able to mentor other people, for you to have peers where you're in the trenches with them and be able to actually see other people's path ahead of you. This keeps you empowered, motivated, as well as the fact that when you help others, you're generally helping yourself, because that's how you cement and build mastery of something. Also found that mentorship and coaching is very important. Now, what's the difference between mentorship and coaching? Coaching is someone being there with you going up the mountain. Mentorship is somebody that has been up the mountain a ton of times, telling you exactly what rocks not to go on, what cliff not to go on, which path to actually go. You don't have to be some scholar to be a coach. But mentorship and coaching, very different. You don't need a ton of mentoring sessions, right? You need more, generally on the path, you need more coaching than you need mentoring. But without the mentorship and having somebody that has been there and done it over and over and over and over again, you're going to have to spend your own time making the mistakes and making more mistakes to be able to figure it out. I'm all for making mistakes and learning and failing forward. But I really believe, and the reason that I do what I do on a daily basis is because I know that we can build entrepreneurship in a society that doesn't have to spend as much time making the exact same mistakes. And then finally, a feedback loop, right? When you make choices, you get feedback. When you do something, you get feedback. But if you don't know what that feedback means, then you can't do anything about it. So this is very connected to mentorship and coaching, because if you have a feedback loop, hey, I did this and this happened. Oh, well, that means this, so you need to do this other thing. And this accumulation of decision-making makes it so that you arrive where you want to arrive. And so what I found is that most of the time, entrepreneurs have to get this from a bunch of different places, right? So they have a couple of coaches, maybe a mentor, right? Maybe they have a couple of friends that they get a feedback loop, or their partner. They might subscribe to a mastermind community or some Facebook groups, right? They might have an accountability coach, or somebody in their life that they do that for each other. But all of these things, but you're the one that's essentially having to self-curate this, along with the fact that you're now paying for all these different courses and programs and things. And this is really what I ended up deciding to build, is the ability to have all of these elements for entrepreneurs that are like you, online entrepreneurs, that are coaches, that are consultants, that are experts, authors, healers, and service providers. Because every single one of you needs what's inside here. Every single one of you needs every single part of this life. And so I came to realizing that, like, okay, well, do you need to kind of go and figure out your own personal development mindset? Do someone need to figure out every single one of these themselves? I said, if they do, then they're going to spend literally years, maybe 5 years figuring it all out, getting that system for them. And I said, well, I can curate that for them because I've done this enough. I know what is important on mindset for entrepreneurs. I know how to have the right feedback loop. I know what mentorship somebody needs. And so that's how I ended up building the different programs that we have. And when you submit the intake form, that's why I can see, okay, this person is here. I know that this is the next major thing. I know these are the other next major things that are going to be important. And I'm basically coming to you and saying, hey, here is everything you need. Not to say that I am a one and all solution for everything that you have. You may have other elements here that you enjoy that add on top of this, but I want to make it so that you're not searching for all the things that I know that the entrepreneurs that have created success and that I've mentored, a lot of the time, not intentionally, but they created all of this, which allowed for the momentum in their life and allowed for the momentum in their business. And the return of having this amplifies every single month that goes by, because if you look up here, I didn't say, hey, you need tactic A, B, C, D, E, and F, and G. I said you need all of these things, which most of are not saying, hey, you need to have I'm going to sell you how to do a funnel. If I sell how to do a funnel, you get returned once. But with this stuff, you're literally changing who you are as a human being to get closer to who you actually want to be, and closer to the success and the harmony, the alignment that you want to have in your life. And so this allows you to have return at the get-go. It allows you to have return, but not only that, it allows for a compound return. It allows for the compound interest of every single year that you're continually changing, and every single year that you are in business, to have an exponential return. So no matter if it's $1,000 or $5,000 or $20,000 or $100,000, whatever the investment is, whatever makes sense for where you are, whatever version, we have different versions of what this looks like depending on where you are in business, what level of intimacy what you need, what level of mentorship you need, what level of a feedback loop you need, what level of strategy plan, what level that makes sense for where you are. But the beauty is we're able to create an exponential return over and over and over into the future. And every single time when I built this, I realized the ripple effect of me building this, and not just providing, hey, here's the solution, but actually giving a scenario where we're giving a personalized experience to every single person that's coming in. Because you might come in and you say, you know what, I need this, and this. Community don't care about, accountability don't care about. I know what my information is. I'll take care of my systems later. But we are able to tell you that that's the case. But the exponential return of having this into the future, the ripple effect of what's going to happen in your life, what's going to happen in your kids' lives, what's going to happen into your customer lives, because of the fact that you have this, you have this, I'm trying to find the right word. You have this place. You have this, the ability to connect, actually, the ability to connect your willful, intellectual, intuitiveness together in a place of intention, in a place of being conscious, allows you to scale with clarity, allows you to scale your life, allows you to have consistency in your world, allows you to have all the things that I really truly believe that entrepreneurs, if you're here, want, which is alignment, which is balance, which is harmony, which is success, not just in the worldly way, but your version of success, and the deepest version, which is fulfillment. That's all I've got. That's it. That's implementation. I wanted to share with you, not implementation that would make you feel empowered for a day or make you feel empowered for a couple of days or a week. I wanted to give you some principles that you can align for the rest of your life. I really want to help you. You know, if we're in texting back and forth, whatever it might be, or you're watching the replay or you're watching this in the future, we're not going anywhere. This is going to be here for years to come. The way in which we do it may change. The offer may change in the future of what we necessarily do. But these elements, these parts of what it takes to be able to actually create growth, and create scalability, and to create the life of harmony that you really want. That's just a principle for the rest of time. I don't think you come back here in 100 years, it's still going to be the same. So with that, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here with me. And if it feels in alignment to work with each other, I'm really excited for that too. Love you all. See you, everybody. I will talk to you soon. Bye.